Good thing. So as I said, we are here for our software engineering final project showcase with 3 of our recent graduates who are generously going to share what they built with us and talk through what their challenges were and how they built it and why they built it. And they're really amazing projects. So I'm really excited that everyone is here to see what these people have for us. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first presenter. I will say before we get started really fast that please feel free to ask questions at any point. If you think of something, just go ahead and type it in either the chat box or the question and answer box. At any point during the presentation, you can just go ahead and type that question in and I will get to it and field it to our presenters at the end. Or, if one presenter is going and then the next presenter starts and you think of a question for the first one, don't feel like you can't ask that. You can go ahead and say who it's for, and then I will make sure that we get to it by the end. So whatever questions you have, just feel free to continuously put them in. The more questions, the better, and I will get to them. So we are going to get started with our first software engineer. I'm going to say software engineer because you're no longer a student. So our first software engineer, please welcome Brenton Foy Reed.
Hey everyone, let me share my screen here. Okay, so you all can see that, right? Okay, so my name's Brenton Reed, and my app is called Emoter. And before Flatiron, I was working at a off-the-grid retreat and conference center with hot springs. So my app lets the user search Reddit and instantly see the emotional content and sentiment of that search, providing an opportunity to research social issues online, among other things. In a previous life, I was a military linguist, and I was always amazed at how language shapes worldview, which in turn shapes actions. And with all the recent media coverage about fake news and social media news, I thought I would make an app that applies machine learning, and in this case, in the form of IBM Watson's natural language processing, to content from Reddit, which is like the 7th most popular website in North America. This app accesses Reddit via push shift API and applies sentiment and emotional analysis, as I mentioned, via IBM Watson. So I'll just walk us through here. Sign this up. And there are some weights on here I deployed on Heroku, and if you've done the same, you know that the app goes to sleep after so many minutes, and so it can take a little bit of time to get up and running. Refresh here. Okay, there we go. So users are able to search by the username of the Reddit user. So any contributor on Reddit that you find, you could look up. You could also search by subreddit or search terms or any of the above. So let's look in Ask Science. And let's look at COVID. That's pretty hot these days. Okay, so first it gives us a summary of the search. We didn't select a user. We selected a subreddit. If you don't select a subreddit, then it looks at all of Reddit. And it only goes back to the most recent 50 comments. And that's scalable up to as many comments as we want. And the topic is, of course, COVID. So sentiment score, this is negative sentiment or positive sentiment. So this is overall, emotional content, but really summed up on a scale from -1 to +1. The first chart here is the emotional content separated into 5 buckets: sadness, joy, fear, disgust, and anger. And these emotions, and you'll notice joy and fear are both on this, pertain to the search of COVID in the subreddit Ask Science. The second table takes the word COVID inside of all of these comments, and then for any surrounding sentences for which the machine learning deems that COVID is the object, it pulls the emotional buckets out of that. That's a little bit hard to explain. Basically, it looks at the word COVID and says, what's the emotional content for the word COVID in this context? And then below, you have all the actual comments that were made. A user could also go and see, hey, what else are other people searching for? And you see I've been, vaccination, sadness, and joy on a conservative subreddit. So there's a lot that could be done with this. I did this with React and Semantic UI for styling and Ruby and Rails. I also collaborated with a UX student from Career Foundry who just graduated, and he did an actual user study. There were only 5 participants, but it was an actual study. And 85% said that they would use it on mobile. So that's why I have the console up right now, because I made it to look good on mobile. Challenges, I did the fetching and the analysis on the back end. I had to use HTTP party and a gem called .env to secure credentials. And the challenge for me in doing that was I found the back end fetch to be really pretty straightforward. Just getting the data from that into the shape and format it needed for IBM Watson, that was really tricky. Also, it took me a while to realize that I could actually save JSON objects into a database as JSON objects. So I had the file type as text and or the data type as text, and that wasn't working on the front end, and that took a while to figure out why it wasn't working. And that's it. Oh, how to get a hold of me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I prefer the Slack channel. Facebook and LinkedIn also work. A great thing about having my name is it's pretty unique. So if you type that into any of them, you will be able to find me, LinkedIn included. But I put the link to LinkedIn here anyway. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenton, so much. That was amazing. We do have a question, but it's for the whole group, so I'm going to wait until the end. I encourage anyone who is on the call to take a screenshot of Brenton's contact information or write it down. Just write it down his name since it's unique enough. If you do have a question, please type it in now, or you can type it in another point. I do have a question, Brenton.
Okay.
Excuse me because I'm, a community person and I have not gone through the Flatiron curriculum, so I am not technical at all. But it seems to me that you use a lot of data science along with your software engineering skills. Is that an accurate assessment?
Well, I have a research I have a research background, and so that kind of led me to this. But in terms of actual technical skill, no, it didn't really involve any data analysis. I mean, that probably the most data analysis thing that I did was use recharts to display the data in charts, bar charts.
So that was like a whole nother learning for you because that's something outside of what you learned in the curriculum.
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. Great job. I'll ask one more question. Was there anything that surprised you in when you built this, or, what you saw when you were going through the Reddit thing, like the emotions?
Yeah. First of all, you can get on the tool, and as I mentioned, it is deployed. Here's the URL right here on Heroku. It's actually pretty reflective of social issues, so you can kind of level set your expectations when you look at it on what you think is going to happen. And then, when you look up certain like political issues and, you pair that with certain contributors that, are, liberal or conservative or have specific views, you can actually see that play out in the data, which is interesting. I don't know what it says about us or people who are writing things on the internet, but I have yet to find a score that's positive. The overall sentiment scores have all been negative. So while you'll see a joy and maybe a sadness together, that often means that there are people expressing different points of views. But overall, the overall negative scores are kind of interesting. So
interesting, very interesting. I've heard it said that people don't go on Yelp unless they're going to complain. So I think,
right.
it might be the same concept. I'm not sure. Okay. We do have 2 questions for you. How long did you work on your project for?
A month.
A month. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, also I can caveat that though. I took a break for about a week and a half in which I didn't work on it to allow the student to do the UX review.
Awesome. Cool. Good to know. And then also, is the app available to use?
Yep, it's on Heroku. And this is kind of an awkward URL, I guess. So let me put it in chat here.
Awesome.
If you're using it and it stops working, it's probably because I hit my data limit for the free tier of the Watson, IBM Watson service. But it resets every month, so come back next month if it doesn't work.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So we are going, again, if you have any further questions for Brinton, you can feel free to go ahead. He just posted the link in the chat. You can go ahead and keep on putting those questions in and I will get to them at the end. But we are going to move on to our next presenter. Please welcome another software engineer, graduate software engineer, just in general, Sam Ostrowski.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So my name is Sam Ostrowski, and I am a software engineer. And let me just share my screen here. Okay, so you can see my slides now, hopefully. Zoom is in the way. All right, here we go. So my name is Sam Ostrowski. I'm a software engineer, and my background is in environmental studies and science. And I've worked in industries from publishing to higher education administration. And I'm really excited to be here today and walk you through my final project, which is called Good Theater. Now, the idea for Good Theater came from, and my slides are not moving, so let me just grab that. There we go. So my idea for my project came from a website, which you may be familiar with. It's called Goodreads. This is an application that lets you track books that you've read, comment on them, review them, put them on your virtual bookshelves, see what other people have read and thought about books, and identify new books to read. And I live in New York City. I really enjoy going to see musicals and plays when they're running. And so I thought it would be a really fun idea to have a Goodreads, but for theater. And the other thing I liked about Goodreads is it has a really rich set of features that I thought would be good practice and fun to try and replicate. So when I was trying to develop this application, I did look for an API that had this information, the information about shows and plays. I couldn't find one. It's a little bit too niche, but I did find the Internet Broadway database. And so I brushed up on my scraping skills and took some information from their website. So I'm going to go ahead now and show you my application. Once I can find it, there it is. So it's pretty straightforward. This is the home page here. And what I wanted this application to be is that you can come on the website, you can browse through the shows, and you don't have to be logged in to browse through the shows. You can go and click on any show here, and you'll see the data is kind of limited right now. And then if you do want to save a show to your account, you can do so. So if I were to go and try to save it to my account, it would prompt me to log in. And so users are able. Yes.
Sorry, just 1 second. I can't see your app anymore.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Sorry about that.
No worries, not a problem at all. Oh, sharing is paused. Okay, so why is that? I'm gonna do a new share. There we go, try that. All right. Make that PowerPoint go away. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit to make sure that you can see everything. So this is my application. Here's the home page. You can see that I did replicate many of Goodreads' look and feel. And the thing that I wanted people to do is to be able to browse through shows and then save those shows to their account if they are interested. So if I add to saved, it prompts me to sign up. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my test account. I can save those shows. You can see them here. All the shows that have been saved to the back end are put here. And then if, maybe you saved a show by accident, you want to remove it, you can go ahead and do that and it will update. The thing that I'm working on now is that you can go and added some CRUD features. If you want to add a little bit more information about a theater or director or a musical that you've seen. And then the other thing that I'm working on is adding reviews so that you can go ahead and do your ratings, do your comments, and see what other people have said about those shows. So you have a little bit more of a social cataloging experience. So that's the application right there. I do want to talk a little bit about the technologies that I used. In this case, I used in the back end, it's Rails with Active Record. I use Noko-Giri for my scraping, JSON web tokens for authentication, and Figaro to hold my environmental variables. And then the front end is React, Redux for state management, and Redux Thunk for the fetch calls. Some of the challenges that I faced with this project were twofold. First, using hooks, we kind of had learned class-based components. And so I really had to read through the documentation to use hooks and integrate it with both Redux and Thunk, particularly when there was some user information that I had to share with the Thunk in order for the fetch calls to work. And then the second challenge that I faced was authentication. It was pretty straightforward to do the encoding and decoding on the Rails side of the application. But then I realized that once I was starting to implement it, I wasn't sure what to do with the token or how to send it back to the server. So it just took some working out to figure that out. So that's it. I am sharing all of my links here. Check out the GitHub, check out the live app, the video demo, and please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to take any questions. And thanks for bearing with me on the.
Oh, it was perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We do have a couple of questions. So not necessarily related to the project, but
Sure.
You mentioned that you were located in New York City. Was wondering if you've gone to the Flatiron School in person at all during your program.
I have not. My time with the program pretty much neatly coincided with COVID, and the campus was closed for most of it. I think it opened just recently, so I haven't ventured down to campus, but it looks really cool. And they have a lot of activities that seem fun. Yeah,
it is. It's pretty amazing there. So unfortunately it opened at the tail end, I think, of your
yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, I think I would, I saw that you have a lot. Not only did you, use the scraping to create your own API of this, but there were a lot of technologies in there that I didn't necessarily recognize. How much of this did you self-teach yourself?
I would say, well, so we had done scraping pretty early on in the program. I hadn't used it since then, so I really had to go back and reteach myself how to use it. And then I would say, like, all of the hook-based stuff, making sure that the asynchronous calls worked, I really had to work through that on my own. And the documentation really was my best friend here.
Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you so much. Please, everyone, if you haven't already, take a screenshot so that you can contact Sam and reach out to her, link up, work together, whatever it is. And if you have any questions moving forward, just feel free to put them in the question and answer, and I will get to it at the end if you think of anything for her. But thank you so much, Sam.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so last but not least, oh, Brenton, sorry, did you have a question? Oh, it says you raised your hand. Okay. All right. Okay, so last but not least, we're moving on to our last software engineer, recently graduated. Please welcome Taylor Treese.
Hello, thank you. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, and I need to make sure to share my sound as well. All right, my name is Taylor Treese. I'm a full stack developer, a creative thinker, and a constant learner. Some of my professional experience, I was a team leader and an event manager for an entertainment production company. I taught people how to become lighting designers and sound engineers. And now I am a sales rep. So that's given me a lot of client facing experience. And the project that I'm presenting is a music theory coordinator. So the problem that this solves is to learn music, it helps to be able to hear the music. When I was teaching myself music theory, years ago, I found myself gravitating to YouTube initially, but the problem was those videos were just way too long and it took them forever to get to the point, and you really just watching it to hear something. So I ended up doing most of my stuff, most of my learning by reading, but I didn't know how to play an instrument yet. So I couldn't, it was a weird kind of disconnect between the sound and the theory. Anyway, so what I made was a sandbox where there's not very much or no prior knowledge necessary. So here is the demo. Let's see. So this is the sandbox. So what I guess you would do first is you would come over here to learn theory. And right now it's just a bunch of lorem ipsum, but this essentially would have music theory knowledge in there. Or you come over here to other resources, and this is where I would link resources that I found helpful. And then after you learned a little bit, you come over here to the song workshop. Are y'all able to see this? Okay, is this too small or does it need to be bigger?
It's a little small.
Let's see. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so what you would do first is you would build your key. So you could pick major or minor. And then you could pick natural, sharp, or flat. So here are all the natural keys. Here are all the sharp keys, and here are all the flat keys. We're just going to do C major. And here are the modes that you could pick. And this would just kind of change around the order of your chords. So what you could do is, I have a saved song here, but what you could do is you'd be able to pick any of these and they would pop down here in the box. So let's see. And that would be a 1-4-5 in C major. And say you wanted to add a 6 in there, put the root in there for the resolve. And you could change the name. Since you changed the chord, we could name this 1-4-5-6-1. And it'll update your song. You can see now it's changed, and this kind of stays intact. And you could also remove and save and whatever. Basically, you can play with chord progressions that you learned in here and then save them if you want to. And yeah, that's pretty much the crux of that application. Let's see. So what I used React for the front end. I used Tone.js in order to play the notes. The way that it goes in, it doesn't take in chords. You use individual notes to build the chords. So Tone.js is basically an API, and you can use it to build things like synthesizers, and that's how I got the piano noise. Anyway, I used Redux to manage the state. I used Rails and PostgreSQL to store the information, to persist it. And I use CSS and Bootstrap for the front end. And the biggest problem that I faced was deciding how to represent the structure of music theory. So I didn't really find an API that did this, although I didn't really look very hard either. But so I built my own music theory API from scratch. And the biggest problem that I faced was figuring out how to represent how to build the chords and the scales and the keys and everything. So what I did was, whenever you see the database, all that gets created are notes. And then from there, I have algorithms that put the chords together based on what the user wants. And then those chords are put together to build scales. And then those scales are all a part of a key. So basically, whatever you pick gets built as you need it. So what I did was, this isn't fetching any music theory. Essentially, what I did was I just ran through and created all the JSON files for each key. And then I stored those in React. So that way it's not having to fetch every time it wants to build a chord, or every time it wants to select a chord. It's all on the front end. But the user information and the songs that are saved in the back end. Also, another challenge I faced was, if I wanted to go back in and add new chords or scales or keys, I had to make the back end incredibly user-friendly, because God knows I wouldn't be able to remember what the back end looked like in a few months. So basically, all you have to do is you have to make a function that has the chord's name and then the interval between the notes building the chords, and the back end puts it all together for you. So it's very user friendly. You can you can build it better. I forgot the word. Anyway, this is my information. Just email me, taylor@taylortreese.com. If you found this interesting, or if this is something you would like to learn more about, contact me. I can give you the link to the API, on my GitHub. If you'd like to clone it down, use it for any of your projects. It's pretty sound. I mean, it's technically correct as far as music theory goes. So yeah, if that's interesting to anybody, just give me a shout. Thanks.
Awesome, Taylor. Thank you so much. Really amazing. I have, just so that everyone knows, I've already told Taylor that I want this so that I can learn how to play piano. Taylor, how could you, in the sandbox, could you create an entire song?
Yeah, I mean, you could do this however you want. I don't have it to where you can change the BPM, and I don't have it to where you can put in intervals. So your song is going to be like really boring. The idea is for you to learn a little bit about chord structure and resolve, and then be able to build a little chord progression to test it out. So like, say, you learned that, going from C major back down to a diminished and then back to a C major, like this would be, standard. This would cause friction, and then this would resolve the friction. So you could actually hear what that sounds like, because if you're reading, this is dissonance, this is how you resolve it. It's like, okay, but you can actually listen to it and hear what it means by resolved. You can actually kind of like feel that tension. So kinda, I mean, if you consider chords with just like 1 second between them, I mean, you could put as many as you wanted in here. Yeah, but I wouldn't really call that a song unless you wanted to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type it in. I am going to get to some of the questions that are for everyone. So any of the panelists, if you just want to answer, go ahead and unmute yourself. But the first question is from TK, and it's, how would you suggest someone get started in the field via formal education?
You mean other than a boot camp?
I was going to say, join Flatiron.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone here, but I would assume that most people here would say to join a boot camp similar, or to join Flatiron, because it's the quickest way to kind of get into the field.
Yeah, and I would add too, if you're not sure if a bootcamp is right for you, there's a ton of free online resources where you can just get started. I got started with Free Code Camp before I decided to jump into Flatiron, and that's a great way to just play around with code and see if it's something that interests you.
Awesome.
I also got started with Free Code Camp. I would say one of the biggest benefits of Flatiron are you have around the clock support, basically. Whenever you're done, which you can get done as quick as you want, essentially, you have a great network of people. So it's it's more supportive after you graduate than any actual, than like any university that I've been to.
Great, thank you. Another question for all of you. How much has advisors or instructors helped you in your capstone project?
I could go. So, my instructor was there when I got stuck. So, I would give him a shout, and I probably had about 4 or 5 questions a week. Then he had help get me unstuck, and then I'd be, back to just coding again.
If it's anything outside of, like, say that you're learning something in the curriculum and you're stuck on it because it's just like slightly different, or there's like a little bug that you don't recognize, they'll help you with stuff that you learn in the curriculum. But like, I had to learn Tone.js, and that's not in the curriculum. They kind of want you to learn that on your own because they probably don't know it either, because like that's like an additional thing that you have to add into your project. So it's a good thing that there are things that you want to learn on your own. So they'll help you, but a lot of times you're not going to want to ask for help. At least I didn't, because like, I'm kind of competitive and I wanted to get it done on my own. But they're there if you need it, for sure.
Okay. All right. Next, so I will preface this. So the question is, did you all belong to the same cohort, full-time or flex? I will say that the flex is a new program that we have. So everyone who is graduating recently was either full-time or part-time or self-paced. So we used to have 3 paces for online students. Now we have full-time or flex. So, but I will let you all, I do not believe that any of you were in the same cohort, correct? No. Okay. So do you just want to say what your pacing was?
Yeah, I was full-time online.
I was part-time online.
And I was self-paced. That was in perfect
Yes! I love that. We have all three represented here. Great. Okay. When did you all graduate, and are you employed now? I can't speak to employed. I don't believe that any of you are yet in this field, but I will say that they all just graduated this month. So each project showcase is tied directly to that month's graduation. So these are all, we have some congratulations in the chat for you all. But are any of you employed in the field yet? Or no, I mean, you just graduated a week ago.
No, I'm volunteering for a product that I knew some people that work there beforehand, and it's in Rails. So they're like, yeah, come on. So no, but not yet. Getting paid.
So.
I'm not employed yet as far as this goes, but you start making connections on LinkedIn like immediately when you get out.
Yeah, they offer a fair amount of support and guidance on like what to do weekly once you finish the program, making connections, continuing to code, being active in the community. So not employed yet, but we're all just starting that journey and in the process.
Okay. So next question, and I think that Lucas's question, and I'm so sorry, I don't want to butcher your name, so I'm just not going to say it. But the last question that just came in, I think that they are both similar. So about how much time did you spend after the daily classes? How much time did you give for extra hours studying? And then like that last question was, how many hours do you code in a day? So those are similar. I'll let you all say that together.
Yeah, so it shifted around a little bit, but my classes, I had about an hour a day of instruction, and then the whole rest of the day was coding. And especially when I started, I was anywhere from 10 to 14 hours a day during the week, and then usually would take the weekend off or partially off. But then towards the end, it was more like 8 to 10 hours a day.
And keep in mind that was full-time pace. So
That was full-time. Yep.
yeah. So Taylor and Sam, if you want to speak to your paces as well.
Sure. So as a part-time student, we had about, I would say 1 to 2 hours of instruction per week. And then we would have a group pod meeting, it was called, where smaller groups of us would meet and have some more one-on-one time with the instructor. On top of that, probably, I worked full-time, so I continue to work full-time. So I only probably got maybe an hour or two of studying per day, and I bulked most of my studying on the weekends, probably a couple hours each Saturday and Sunday. But my program was about 10 months long, so over time it was probably similar to what Brenton did.
Mine really varied. I mean, the only thing that would have kept me from, if I wasn't coding, I was probably doing something with friends and family, or I was working. I'm fortunate enough to have a job that is remote, and also they're paying for my education. So in June, I picked up cybersecurity and networking at a local community college. So I was taking 9 hours of that over the summer, and now I'm currently taking, I think, 12 or 16, depending on if they're 3 or 4 hours. I don't even know. But along with this and the community college, I was doing, I don't know, a lot. It really just depended.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna, in the essence of time, I'm gonna go for the name. And if I butcher it, you can just yell at me, but, Lindsay and Zarina, I'm gonna bulk your 2 questions together because they're similar, but were there group projects and how much did you collaborate with other students? I will say that for software engineer, there's no group projects for the curriculum. For some of the other disciplines, there are group projects. I know cyber does group projects and data science does some group projects. It's alternated. But I will also say that there are a lot more group project offerings extracurricularly. So there's a lot of hackathons that are happening now and things of that nature. So there are lots of opportunities to collaborate, but if anyone wants to speak to that question as well, you can go for it.
We didn't do anything really formally in my part-time program. We did have the pod meetings every week, and sort of depending on the week and what the curriculum was, we would maybe do a small project together. Like I remember towards the end, we were practicing doing Git pulls and Git commits together on a project, working to, I think ours was like a movie poster website where you could search for movies and see the movie poster. So we were sort of all working on it together, but that was something, it was extra. The pods weren't required, so you would have to opt into participating in that. I don't know if either of you did group projects as part of your work.
Yeah, I did the tic-tac-toe with the friend that I made in Flatiron. We did, his name was Corey Stein. He and I did the first tic-tac-toe together. So I get, yeah, you have an option on 1 or 2 of them to do it together.
Yeah, and I think it really behooves you as a student to seek out connections with your peers and work on projects together sort of outside the curriculum, because that's just more practice and more feedback as well in terms of like, how do you talk about something with someone else? How do you work on that project together? So even if you're not doing it as part of the curriculum, I would recommend finding a community among your peers and doing it yourselves.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to bulk TK's 2 questions together. What or where would a person look for an internship or opportunity in the field? And are there any national associations that any of you would recommend?
So I did a little bit of looking around, and that was a few weeks ago. So I don't have any specifics, but there are organizations out there, and especially around like nonprofits and NGO work, that take on either volunteers or have some kind of apprenticeship or some sort of like internship. So I found quite a few like opportunities for that. And then also, we have a channel that job opportunities come through from Flatiron. And, for example, one just came through with a LinkedIn apprenticeship program that I just applied for. So there's quite a bit out there.
Okay, can any of you talk a little bit about choosing a CSS framework? Is there one that is taught in more depth at Flatiron?
Excuse me. I guess really just learn Bootstrap. That's probably what I'd recommend. They don't CSS mainly what is taught in Flatiron. I mean, they teach you a little bit about design and stuff like that, but really they want you to be making applications, and kind of how it looks, I would say, is a little bit more on you. So basically what I'd recommend, I mean, Flatiron teaches a little bit of CSS, but along with Flatiron, I'd probably go on Udemy, get a little $10 Bootstrap course to supplement your Flatiron education.
I maybe took a different approach to CSS frameworks. I only use them for about half of my projects through the program, and I chose a different framework for each project where I used a framework just to get exposure to more types of frameworks, get practice implementing them into my project. So I tried to find something that was fairly straightforward, easy to use, had a nice feel and look to it, because I wanted my website or my applications to feel clean. So I think I used Bulma and Foundation. Those are two pretty popular frameworks as well. So there's value in trying different frameworks too.
Awesome. Okay. And last question, Taylor, you said that you studied other courses in the community college. Do you recommend doing other courses outside the boot camp, like during, before, or after?
After. Don't do it at the same time. Just finish your boot camp. Trust me. Just finish your boot camp. Because once you get out, once you get out, like your resources are invaluable. It's like I started the courses and then I just felt like I was just working with a hand tied behind my back, basically. So I would have really enjoyed being able to focus only on the boot camp.
Yeah, and speaking from the perspective of a full-time graduate, the people who were trying to do things in addition to the full-time, like part-time jobs or do like other courses and stuff, ended up having a pretty hard time. I think the people who did the best were just focused on the work here, and then like Sam said, like reaching out and trying different kinds of styling options and stuff like that on the projects.
Yeah, I will say, working with students for about 2 years now, and knowing it is a lot, it's a lot no matter what pace you're doing. And so I think focusing on this as much as possible, also, going outside and looking for outside information when you need it or you want it for your project or anything like that is important. But keep in mind as well that while you're moving into the job search and you're working with your career coach, they will encourage you to continue your learning, because the first thing that employers will do when they look at your resume is they'll look at your GitHub to see if it's still active. They want to see that you didn't just stop your learning right after you graduated. They want to see that you're continuing it. So I think after the boot camp, it's a really great opportunity to then pursue anything new that you wanted to learn, anything that wasn't covered. And then that shows that you are hungry and you're not just, letting someone else do all the teaching for you and then kind of hands off. They want to see that you're a self-starter. So I think that would be probably your best bet. So for everyone who's asking if this will be recorded, it is being recorded. We do post it. If you're a student, it's going to be posted on Base. If you're not a student, the best bet, I'm not sure exactly how they are handling it. That's the marketing team that handles that. And I would talk to an admissions counselor to see if how you might be able to get the recording. Sorry, I don't have more information there for you. But thank you for everyone who is interested. I think that that speaks to the three of your projects and how amazing they were that everyone wants this recording. Thank you so much to each of you for coming and showing what you built. You all did such an amazing job. So proud of all of you. And I can't wait to see what you do in the future. Everyone make sure that you're following these people on LinkedIn so that you can also follow in their journey. And I will see you all later. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.